Alright, today I'm working on a 2005 F150 4.6 liter 2-valve engine. And there's lots of good videos on YouTube about how to do these timing chains on this type of engine, but I don't see a lot saying how to change it in a truck. And this is an F150, this is a 2-wheel drive. So there's a few things that I'm finding that I'd like to make a video about to let some people know about when you're doing this job. I don't know if this will all be in one video or if I'm going to make a few different ones. Just using my phone for this, so I don't have my camera with me. Anyway, first thing, I found that you got to get this EGR pipe out of the way. Just loosen it. You can loosen it off. You got to crack it down there. Get you some light. To do that, you're going to want to go through the wheel well. That's an 1 1/16 wrench. 1 1/16 will fit on there. So crack it at the top here where your EGR valve is, and just you're able to swing that away like that, and that'll give you enough room to get your valve cover out. Valve covers have studs, kind of like, not really a stud, but these bolts that have the long end on them to hold the wiring harness. So you just want to take note of where those go, because there's some that don't have that stud on the end, and there's some that do, and you want to put them back in the same place. I took the power steering reservoir right out. It was just easy enough to do that. I haven't got the power steering pump off. I just thought I'd make a video before I get any further, show a few things here. On the pickups, this valve cover is going to be the one that's going to give you a bit of grief. The back bolts on this one are a little tougher to get at because of those wiring harnesses down there. I haven't got it off yet. I didn't disconnect all the wiring harnesses from the injectors and the coils, but I did take the front ones off. You have to take the EGR pipe off, pardon me, the PVC pipe off, and get that cover out of there. I've got the cam holding tools, because I know some guys pop out all the cam followers, but to do that back in there wouldn't be easy, and getting them back in again, I think it's just worth getting the tools to do it myself. So got this cover off, and I've got the cam chain exposed. This one was making the slapping noise. There's no phasers on this engine, so it looks like it's a tensioner. You can see that's the side that was making the noise. So they didn't drive it for very long like that. This truck has had a really high maintenance truck. I think it's around 160,000 kilometers on it now. It's already had a transmission replaced in it and a few other things. Fuel pump driver module went and some things like that. So now it's time for timing chains. So that's a couple of the things that I noticed that aren't mentioned on other videos specific to an F150. So hopefully this will help out, and I'll keep going here and show you what I find. All right, so I was mentioning that this is the timing chain here that's making the noise when this thing runs. I should have got a video of it running. It was pretty noisy. Hear that? And just when I turn it over, just wanted to show this before I take it apart any further. You can hear it even just barring it over. Hear that? So you can see that there is valve train noise happening even at slow speeds. Just something I thought that I'd include. Got that valve cover off. What I ended up doing there was taking the harness. This harness here, it goes to the ECM. It's actually this harness here. So it binds up back there on that plastic piece. You can't see, there it is there. So you can see that plastic collar there that holds a heater hose or an AC hose on. And what happens is this harness will bind up against that, push up like that in there, and you won't be able to get the valve cover enough height to get it over top of your valve train and get it out of there. And you can't lift it up because high enough, because it was originally routed underneath this AC hose or AC line right here. So you just got to unplug 2 plugs here. This one and this one off the ECM. Battery's disconnected right now anyway, so there's no risk there. This is where the other one plugs in. And you got to pull it out from underneath there and put it over top. And then it's tight, but you can just wiggle that valve cover out of there. Now I'm just about ready to take the front cover off. Power steering pump is off. It's not bad on this, I guess. Apparently some of the Lincolns and stuff like that, the Ford Explorer, it's a little tighter to get the power steering pump off, but this isn't too bad at all. On this one, I guess if you are having a hard time getting at the bolts, you probably could pull that pulley off if you have a puller, but I didn't find that it was that hard to get at the bolts. Use the 10mm gear wrench. Some of the things you want to keep in mind when you're doing this job is, do you want to change your water pump? I'm going to order a water pump and change it while I'm in here. So it's very similar to doing a timing. I don't know why these engines don't use, by the way, just as a side point, don't use a timing belt. Why Ford wouldn't put a belt in here if they want overhead cams, dual overhead cams. The Japanese engines have used that system for ages. Europeans have. It works good. You make it accessible, and you can change the timing belt in a few hours, depending on the model of the vehicle. And it's a lot, just a serviceable item that's a lot easier to get at. I really don't understand that, but anyways, it's a similar job to that. So I'm going to change, whenever you change a timing belt on something like heck, I don't know, Subaru, usually you change the water pump and the pulleys at the same time. So I'm going to do the water pump while I'm in here. I've got an oil pump as well to change, to put on this, because I hear that sometimes the tensioners, they're the guides, timing chain guides, can get into the oil pump. You've probably watched a lot of videos about that. I don't have to explain how that works. So I'm going to replace the oil pump in case it's damaged. Water pump, and some other things you might want to think about is there's 3 tensioner pulleys on these ones, on this 4.6. Again, this is a 2005. So there's 2 smooth pulleys, and there's 1 grooved pulley sitting right there that go in here. You might want to take a picture of where they go. I didn't. Now I've got to figure it out. Oh no, there's different sizes, it looks like. So, and keep track of which ones go where, so you can put them back on the right place. Or something you might want to think about is replacing those, because now that you've got the fan shroud and everything out of the way here, doesn't take that long to get those parts off, but you might want to think about replacing these pulleys while you're in there, because when these go, you're gonna have to take all that stuff back out and get back in there, take the engine fan off to get these out. So if your parts store doesn't have the pulley, maybe they got a couple of those. I don't know what size those bearings are, if they're common or not, but you could always just knock that bearing out, replace the bearing. So I'm going to do one or the other. If I can't get pulleys at the local parts store, they're not in stock, then I'll see if I can get the bearings, because I'd like to have this thing going back together today. I've got most of the parts for it. Alright, that's where I'm at. I'm going to work on pulling that harmonic balancer off, and then I'm going to time it and get that cover off. Other thing that I should mention as well, fan is right hand thread. I saw a few pretty good videos on how to get that off, but size was that now 1 7/16 wrench fits on there pretty good, but you can use a crescent wrench, whatever. And that's, just turn her left to loosen it off. I have a fan holding tool that I was able to use, but there's a few different ways you can go about doing that. There's lots of videos online about how you can do that, so I'm not going to waste much time covering it. Alright, keep you posted. I'm going to get back to work. Alright, down to the tensioners and pulleys and everything here. Got my holding tools set up, but I haven't tightened them, torqued them down yet. Let's get that light out of the way there. One on each side. Gonna start taking it apart. I saw quite a few videos of how to do it, when you're at this stage. So there's not a lot more that you can't find very easily online. It's just, I saw that there was just a few things that specific to this year of F150 that I just thought I'd make a video and show, because there's a couple things I didn't see other people covering. This, I don't know, this tensioner here just clicked up, but it's really weak, and this side, I think this is the one that the chain was loose on, and that tensioner was stuck down, and it just flipped up when I was rotating it up to top dead center here. This one though is loose because it broke right there. That's the only place that the guide plate broke, but you can see how loose that chain is because of it. So who knows which side it was. This tensioner looks like it's really loose too. Yeah, it's hardly even. Yeah, so it's stuck, causing that chain to be really loose. Definitely time for new ones. So I got the kit, I got placing the water pump, and I'll even throw an oil pump on it while I'm in here. So there's some of the things to keep in mind when you're doing this. I know there's a lot of videos on how to do this on a 4.6. But like I say, there's usually in a different vehicle than an F150, so far it's not too bad. A couple things are tight, but like that passenger side valve cover, but other than that, I think it's on home stretch here. Starting to put this thing back together again. Got one of the guides in right now, and what I found is that this top bolt on the new guide, this must be an update, because the old one on that side, driver's side, was broken, but it's pretty much the same guide. This one's thicker in here where it broke, so I can show you on this one here, I guess, is there's a metal piece in there, this bushing. This one's really thin. The one that's in the replacement guide is quite a lot thicker. So what'll happen is the little bolt with this bolt here, which is fine for the length that's needed for this guide, will work, but the new one, you won't get any threads coming out. So you need a bolt that's probably another 1/2 inch longer. So I found one, it didn't have the 8mm head on it, but it's the same bolt, same thread, and it's long enough that it reached through there. I think the torque spec on these is 89 inch-pounds. I'm just watching some videos, getting all that information as I go through the job here. Here's the one that broke. So that's, you can see where it's quite a lot thinner. And then the replacement one here actually was exactly the same, so I guess that's not an upgrade for the one that broke. That's too bad. But anyway, that was a change on this passenger side one, and that's the new bolt right there. It's got a 10mm head, but it fit in there just fine. And the kit doesn't come with a new bolt, so I'm not too sure what that's all about, if that was an update that was done sometime later on and an afterthought or what. But anyway, just had to get a new bolt. That's something to keep in mind if you get this kit. I think this is a Melling kit. No, Cloy's. All right, so that was just something I thought I'd add. I'm gonna carry on. All right, I got everything back together. I'm just about to put the timing cover back on this thing. So sprockets are on, bolts are torqued, 88 foot-pounds. I don't know if I mentioned that or not. Tensioners are in. I didn't get the iron tensioners. It was just the kit that I got had the plastic ones. That's what I'm going to use. Got the timing gear all lined up down there, so it's pretty easy. You got the dark link that goes on the dot, same as up here. Once that's all timed, it's got to stay within time, right? So that's done. So this really actually isn't that bad of a job that way. It's once you got those cam holding tools, I think that's worth having. I know you can do it without them, but that makes it a little quicker and easier to do that. Just wanted to show what likely happened on this engine is this gasket here. You can see where it's pushed out right there. So that wasn't sealing anymore. That I'm thinking that tensioner probably wasn't working anymore, and the chain got slack, and then it broke this guide here when the chain started to slap. So I got it pretty early. I was going to change the oil pump, but I decided not to. It's a pretty low mile engine, and that chunk of the wear guide there is going to be down in the oil pan, yes, but it's not small enough to go into the oil pump and cause any damage. There's no other aluminum or plastic shavings that got in there, so I don't think the oil pump's damaged on this engine. I want to get this back together today because it's Friday and get it back on the road, so I'm not going to spend a bunch more time changing parts that probably don't need to be changed, or they don't need to be changed, I should say. So I'm going to drain out the oil pan because some coolant ran in there. I'm going to put a new water pump in it. I got my new pulleys as well, idler pulleys and stuff like that I'm going to put in. So I think the next thing is I'm going to pop that cover back on, put a little bit of sealant on the cover, but where it lines up here and here, and then a little bit of silicone here and here where the cover meets the engine block, and go ahead and push that on there. I think that's about it for how to get the cover and whatnot back on this engine. I'll put a new fan belt and that on while I'm in there. So it isn't horribly bad to do this.